Well, hello everybody. Once again, it is time for some science. All right, let me pose a quick scenario to you. You're driving down the highway and you come to a red light, so you stop as any good Samaritan would. When the light turns green again, you go, but not 10 seconds after you start moving, a cop pulls you over. You come to the side of the road, he comes up to you and says that you were going over the speed limit in a 60-mile-an-hour zone. Now, you don't think that you were going 60 miles an hour, but your speedometer has broken, so you have no way of knowing. Or do you? Using the power of physics and a little bit of math, we can calculate velocity for ourselves. And if we can do that, we can take Johnny Law to court and get this ticket redacted if we were indeed going under the speed limit. Now, calculating velocity is pretty easy. All you have to do is guess. Alright, that's enough of that. GUESS is a acronym which stands for Given, Unknown, Equation, Substitute, and Solve. GUESS is a 5-step system for answering any physics question, but today we're going to focus on ones that have to do with velocity. Speaking of, I have the equation for velocity right here. Velocity, as we learned while we were finding it from a graph, is distance over time. How far did you go divided by how long it took to go there. We can also represent this with variables, which would be v equals d over t, or v equals d divided by t. The first letter in our acronym, G, stands for given, and it is basically a reminder to look for what values are already given in a problem and assign them to a variable, meaning that if there is some distance noted in the problem, we should write down that the distance is 500 feet or 600 meters or whatever we see in the actual problem itself. Don't forget to assign variables to these, meaning, I know my t equals 5 seconds. I know that my d equals 10 feet. It's very important because it helps make sure that we don't get lost later on. The next letter is U, and it stands for unknowns. This is just reminding us to look for what it is we actually need to find. This is usually denoted by some kind of question right at the end. What was his speed when he finished the race? How long did it take for him to drive to his house? Things like that. And once you have that one sentence, you can ask yourself, what is this really asking me to look for? And once we have that, we know what equation we're going to need. Which brings me to E. Which equation do you need? Once you know what values are given in the problem and which one you're looking for, you'll have to know how to put those things together properly to find that unknown value. And that's where picking an equation comes in. Right now, you've only got one equation. V equals d over t, or velocity equals distance divided by time. And so this is what we're going to use at this step. But later on, there will be more equations to pick from. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to love it. But for now, let's move on. Our first S stands for substitute the known values into the equation. Essentially, just taking the things that you were given in the problem and plugging them into the equation that you chose. Then once you have all of those values in there and you're working with actual numbers, you just need to solve the equation, the same way you would in math, except instead of solving for x, you're solving for distance or time or velocity. Okay, so let's look at some example problems and put this method to use, and then we'll come back to that question of if we are going to have to pay that speeding ticket or not. Okay, so for this first one, I'm going to walk through things step by step using the guess method. I'm going to take it pretty slow so that we can see how this works. This first one says a football field is about 100 meters long. If Fred sprints the length of the football field in 16 seconds, what is his average velocity? Solve the problem using the guess method. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look for my given values. That's the G in guess. And it looks like I've got two numbers here, and I'll highlight them. I like to highlight my numbers anytime that I do a word problem. The first one is 100 meters. They told me that, and they also told me that Fred sprinted this 100 meters in 16 seconds. So when I think about these two numbers, the next step is to sort of decide what they actually tell me. Are they giving me the distance, the time, the velocity, what? So under G, I'm going to list those out. 100 is a unit. 100 meters is a unit of distance. That's how I measure the length of something, is in meters. So that's going to be my D. That's going to be my distance value. And then because seconds are a unit of time, that's going to be T. The next thing to do is figure out what it wants me to find. So when I can, I like to highlight these things in a different color. So this one is average velocity. It looks like they're asking me to find that. And I know because it asked me what his average velocity was. So my unknown value is velocity. Now I need to pick an equation. I've only got one right now. So it's V equals D over T. And once I have that, I'm going to substitute those values in. So I don't know V, so that's going to stay V. But my D is 100 meters, and my T is 16 meters. So it's going to be 100 divided by 16. I'm going to solve now, and when I do, it looks like what my calculator is going to spit out is 6.25 meters per second. How did I come up with that unit? Well, I divided meters by seconds, so it's going to be meters per seconds. That's my velocity. Okay, so let's do it again, and this time I'm going to do it on paper just so it's a little bit more like what you'd actually see. And to do that, I'm going to need some paper. Let me pull that up. There we go. Okay, so let's see. Let me move this around a little bit. Callie wants to turn running into a hobby, I guess because she's a masochist. On her first day, she runs for 480 seconds without stopping. If her average velocity was 3 meters per second, how far did she run on her first day? Well, let's use the guess method. What things are given? Well, one thing that's given is 480 seconds. And another thing that's given is her average velocity. So on her first day, she runs 480 seconds. If her average velocity was 3 meters per second, so 3 meters per second, how far did she run on her first day? So I want to assign these variables while I'm in the G section of my guess. So this seconds is a unit of time, so that's going to be T. And meters per second, that's a unit of velocity, so that's going to be V. Another way that I know is because it told me in the problem. So if I've got these, then what's my, what unknown thing are we looking for? Let's take a look. How far did she run in the first day? So how far? Wants to know how far. That's a unit of, or that's a way to describe distance. So my unknown is going to be distance, D. The equation that I'll use is going to be V equals D divided by T. I'll substitute those in. I know velocity, it's 3 meters per second. I like to write my units in the problem. My D, I don't know. And my T is 480 seconds. So now we just have to solve. So let's see. If I want to do that, I just multiply both sides by 480. And after I do that, let's see. Can take out my trusty dusty calculator. 3 times 480. Looks like she ran 1,440 meters. That is my distance. There you go. You guessed it. It's as easy as that. All right, let's do one more of these. The pitcher's mound in a baseball field is 18 meters from home plate. I'm going to start writing things down as I read the problem now. 18 meters. Okay. Atlanta Braves pitcher Sean Newcomb pitches a fastball at 42 meters per second. 42 meters per second. How long does it take for the ball to reach home plate? Well, for my G, I've been given these two values right here. Since meters is a unit of distance, that one's going to be D. And because meters per second is a unit of velocity, that's going to be V. Which means I need to look for my unknown. It asks me how long it takes for the ball to reach home plate. That's asking me for time. I need to know how long I have to wait before it goes over the plate. So, T is my unknown value. The equation that I'll use is V equals D over T. And now I'll substitute in the given values for those variables. So I know velocity is 42 meters per second. I know that my distance is 18 meters. And I know that my time is what I'm looking for. So now I just need to solve. The way that I like to do this is in 2 steps. I like to multiply by t on both sides. And then I'll divide by 42 on both sides so that t is by itself. You may have been told to cross multiply. This is the way that I like to do it. There's more than one way to solve a math problem. So I multiplied by t on both sides and then divided by 42. Now I've got this. It's 18 divided by 42. Let's put that in our calculator. 18 divided by 42. Well, would you look at that? When we solve, our answer is 0.43 seconds. I usually go to about 2 decimal places if I have to round, which in this case I did. And there's my answer right there. You guessed it. Yeah, Samantha, I'm just getting so much mileage out of this joke. It is fantastic. You have no idea. Hey! So, final problem. The green light behind you is about a quarter mile away, 0.25 miles. You were stopped by a police officer exactly 10 seconds after passing it. If the speed limit is 60 miles per hour, can you get out of this ticket? Or will you have to pay the fine? Now here is my challenge to you. Solve this problem and leave your answer in a comment on the assignment, and I will tell you if you are correct. It's particularly challenging because your time has been given in seconds, but your velocity is given in miles per hour. I'll let you guys puzzle through that. There's also some additional practice on the assignment that's posted in Google Classroom. You guys have a wonderful day, and you guessed it, I will see you soon.